Good Yantif. Tonight begins the Chag, the holiday of Shavuos, and of course we generally associate the Shavuos with the giving of the Torah. Actually, when you read the Torah, it really seems to be a harvest festival, and we bring a special offering of bread, shtei halachim, 2 loaves of bread, which is a special offering on Shavuos after the counting of the Sefira of the 49 days in between the second day of Pesach and the day of Shavuos. Be that as it may, tradition has it that this is the day that the Torah was given on Mount Sinai. And we're told something very special about the Jewish people when they accepted the Torah. It says that when they were told by Moshe that they're going to get the Torah, they said, Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will hear. And you could read this passage and the sentence in the Torah many different ways, but it's assumed in the Gemara and the Talmud that this is something that the Jews went above and beyond what they would normally have to do. Why? Usually you would listen first, hear what God has to say, and then say, okay, we accept it, and we will do what you say. And it would be assumed that after you assessed whether this was something that you can do and you want to do and it's positive for you, then you'll finally do it. But it says, no, the Jews said we will do. In other words, we're going to listen to God no matter what, and then we'll hear afterwards whatever it is we'll hear. And the Medrash says that the Jews, each Jew that was standing on Mount Sinai, got 2 crowns, one for Nasa and one for Nishma. And it says then they lost the crowns when they worshipped the golden calf. Be that as it may, it's something very special about the day of Shavuos. But we have another Medrash which says that the Jews were betachta sahar. They were on the bottom of the mountain. And simply it means at the foot of the mountain. But the Medrash understands betachtas underneath the mountain. So it says, no, God was kaf aleim har kagigas. God took the mountain and held it over the Jewish people like a pot. And he said, if you makabel the Torah mutav, if you accept the Torah, will be good. Vim lav, and if not, shom tehei kfuraskam, there will be your burial place. So God was forcing the Jews to accept the Torah. So when you read it that way, of course it takes on a whole different meaning when they say we will do. It's they were forced. So, and what does it mean that they were forced? And is that the state that we're still in now? So again, the Medrash says no, but by Purim, when it says in the Megillah, Kimu v'kibla Yehudim, that the Jews accepted and upon themselves there it's referring to the holiday of Purim, they say no, they understand the Kimu v'kibla, they accepted the Torah, and now they accepted it without being forced. So from the time of Shavuos, the time of the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai, till Purim, which is many, many years later, they were only doing it because they're forced, and now they do it not being forced. So what does that mean? What's going on here? And the Jewish people never really accepted the Torah of their own free will. So one of the answers given is that, well, if you were at Mount Sinai and you just left Egypt and you saw the 10 plagues and the splitting of the sea and you received the man from the heaven and you had water springing from the earth and following you around, you saw those miracles, and then God appears on Mount Sinai with lightning and thunder, you don't have a choice. It's not really that he actually pulled the mountain up and put it over their head. It's saying figuratively that it's as if the mountain was over our head. We had no choice. It's so obvious that there's a God. It's so obvious what we have to do that we're going to do it no matter what. Na'aseh v'nishma, we'll do whatever we have to. So yes, they're accepting it. They're understanding the presence of God. They're seeing the presence of God. But there's also, in a sense, some fear of God, which is we realize how powerful God is, and when he asks, we do. And what's with Purim? Purim was not a nes nigla, was not an open miracle, but rather a nes nister, a hidden miracle. When you read the story of Purim, we understand it to be a miracle, but if you were living through it, it could have been just the regular politics of the day, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a miracle, and as is often said, that the name of God is not even present in the Megillah on Purim. Therefore, God is there's a hastaras upon him. God is hiding his face, not in a bad way that he's letting bad things happen to us, but that he's acting in through natural means to make sure that the Jewish people survive. So on Purim, it turns out what's happening is we're saying There, they understand not that they're fearful of God, that God is going to wipe them out, or they see open miracles and it's impossible to deny the greatness and the splendor of God, but rather they understand, they see in nature God. They understand it themselves. So now, instead of just nasa, we will do, but it's also nishma. We will hear, and we will hear also has the meaning of we will understand. We take it, we understand it, and we still accept it. Now, you might say that if you're always only keeping the Torah because we understand it, then you're not really listening to God, you're listening to yourself. But the truth is, to have a full compliance with the Torah, it only has meaning if you understand it. We're assuming that when you understand it, you will be moved to follow it because it's so correct and it's so important to follow that path that God has given to us in the Torah. But at the end of the day, then we're doing it not because we just feel we have to, but because we understand it. And that, in a sense, is a higher madrega, a higher level. And I think we have to always think about this in our own lives. There's sometimes we come to God, sometimes just Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur, when we feel there's a Yom Hadin, a day when God is putting us on trial, or Yom Kippur when we're asking for atonement, or if something tragic happens to us in our life, we're worried about health or whatever. All of a sudden, we're all like that. We become very religious at that point. That's when we start to pray. That's when we look to God. That's when we try to do acts of kindness. We want God to act kind with us, right? We're only doing it because we have this fear or because we have a real need, because it's obvious to us at that point that we better act. The real level of holiness that we expect of people is not just to see it at those times, but to see God, to see the truth, to see the need for moral and ethical behavior, and to follow the rules of the Torah and the laws of the Torah because we understand it, not when we're under stress. There's a story they tell, sort of a joke in a way. A fellow was looking for a parking spot and he was getting very nervous, couldn't find the parking spot. He starts praying to God, please, I need a parking spot. I have a meeting in 5 minutes. If I don't find the parking spot, I'm going to miss the meeting. I'm going to lose thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And finally, right in front of him, someone pulls out and he gets the spot. So what does he do? He says, okay, God, no problem. I found the spot. I don't need it anymore. It's obvious we're all like that. When we're in need, we pray to God. When we have it, we forget God. We do that with people also. We do that with friends and family. We'll call when we need someone and then we forget about them. Many of us are guilty of that. But what we have to do is we have to realize that we need that family, those friends all the time. That there's a value in having community. There's a value in thinking of God, even in times when we're not under stress. And hopefully, Shavuos, just like for the Jews at Mount Sinai, was only the beginning of the journey. And we have to then take that a step further and not just do it when we're here because it's Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, or for Yizkor, because there's a death or a sickness, but rather because we think about it all the time. It's always on our mind. And that's the life that we want to choose. Good job, Tiv.